details. None of the nitty-gritty happens till next year, but we would have to commit if we do beyond the one sculpture next year by the end of this calendar year. So, are there any questions?
Nice.
I do have a PDF of all of last year's submissions. It's over 100 different sculptures that these Creative Community Alliance got to choose from. In this graphic that you can kind of cut off, but there's kind of 3 or 4 up here and 4 down here. So, any questions from council?
Any questions?
So on the sculptures, say something happens to one of them and someone messes with it or whatever, what's that process look like?
Yeah, so each participating city can write their contract however they want. We have the benefit of coming in with 30 or 30 some odd other cities having done this for a number of years now. So they'll share their contracts with us, but generally any kind of repair of the sculpture or maintenance of it is put on the artist. So that is not the city's sort of purview. Of course, if it gets vandalized and you have to take it down quickly, most of the contracts have a provision for the city to be able to remove it if they needed to in some sort of emergency, whether it be all of a sudden it becomes unsafe. Let's say there's a storm and a piece falls off and it becomes dangerous, or there's some particularly egregious graffiti that we can't take off easily and we don't want to hurt the sculpture. We'd probably call the artist and then, make sure that we write in our contract, following the model of many other cities who've done this, the ways in which we can quickly remove it if we were to need to, or call the artist and have them have a certain amount of time they have to come repair it. Otherwise, we also have the right to take it down.
Could local artists submit a sculpture?
Absolutely. So part of the reason why the Arts Council decided to pay the membership fee, which is only $50 a year, by the way, to join the coalition is because then we can open this up to local artists. And I have spoken with the Springfield Arts Council as well as Sculpture Walk Springfield about their program. Their program started within the Arts Council and became its own nonprofit that's self-run in Springfield, because I kind of thought, well, if we're going to join a sharing group, we should share with them if we can. But they don't, they're very nice. They're going to help us out with contracts and advice, but they don't really want to share. So if we're going to share and just do this piece by piece, this is the group to do it with. And they do work all over the state. So absolutely, Ms. Graham, we can open this opportunity to local artists.
Well, art can be a great driver of economic development. When I was on my trip to New York last week, I sent Mr. Russell several pictures of interesting small towns that had mural displays or statue displays. My favorite was Casey, Illinois, which had 20 of the world's largest things. They had the world's largest rocking chair, the world's largest knitting needle, the world's largest golf tee, and that's how they were driving business to their town. And I think it's very interesting types of ideas.
Well, I think in the beginning, the starting of the art councils was that we really wanted to define Nixa and find an arts identity for it. So I don't think we want to have 40 sculptures and be the sculpture city like Springfield is turning into, but that doesn't mean that some well-placed sculptures around town in public spaces can't be a really integral part of that. We have partnered with the Historic Downtown Association. We're going to be doing a few more murals in cooperation with them, where basically we solicit and help them select the artists, and then they give us the money to pay to the artists, and so we're going to do murals. I think we'll have more of a mixed bag, maybe even some public performance art over time. But with the Project Power Box and then potentially with a few sculptures around town, we really want to catch the eye of the community as they're going around to get them to understand this is an initiative, because it's really only going to be as strong as the number of community members that begin to participate and get involved in helping to select these sculptures, figuring out what does the artistic identity of the city look like. So, anybody else?
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
Who you got next, Cindy?
I have Karen Perry.
Karen.
Hi, y'all. I've actually been watching some of the meetings and felt like the general tone towards the city was really down and kind of negative. So I just wanted to come and spread a little bit of positivity. I've never spoke at a city council meeting before, so I'm a little nervous. For those who don't know, I run for Jake, which is always a super emotional topic. And I just wanted to come and say how just grateful I really am for Amy, Brian, and Jared, and Justin. Within 24 hours of Jake losing his life, I texted Brian and Jared on Facebook and asked them to come to the vigil and just show support. We had actually lost another boy to suicide 2 weeks before Jake, and without question, they absolutely did. Stood there with Jake's mom, stood there with me, and like I said, it was a very emotional night. It was the first time I ever got to meet Amy Johnston. I had never got to meet Jake, and everything I've asked from the city, from the police department, up to this point has absolutely been met, without question. Justin was at our event on Saturday. Brent Forgy was there with the DARE car. I wasn't able to be at the back-to-school bash, so Brent Forgy actually passed out our bracelets and stickers to kids that might need them. And pretty much anything that we've needed, if it's a space, if it's advice, if it's just support, sharing, anything like that, we've been able to do. So I just wanted to personally come and kind of give my gratitude to the city. The lead is, I was a part of putting in information for that, and then from For Jake's side, we've actually met with the school and the city and asked for those same things. The feedback that I've gotten from parents of autistic kids, kids with ADHD, kids of color, LGBTQ kids, their classmates are telling them at a daily basis to go kill themselves. And we've had parents actually pull their children from school and teach virtual only because they were afraid their child was going to complete suicide. Specifically, a close friend of mine, she's a little girl of color, and she's bisexual. They said that they didn't feel that she was safe going to school anymore. So having somebody there to listen and just kind of share their stories so people can understand that our experience in Nixa, as great as it is not always everybody's experience here. And just to be able to listen and, if just listening for a few minutes is able to save another kid, then we've done a great job. So I'm very grateful, and if you need help, I'm here to help you. But I just wanted to spread a little positivity and kindness. I know that you guys have gotten a lot of a lot of hate and backlash lately, and I am just personally really grateful. I've been in Nixa for 15 years. My kids have grown up here. They don't know any other home but here. And even faced with moving situations, I've always chosen to stay in the city because I truly believe we are better than everybody else around us. I truly believe that we have heart and love for each other. And I just wanted to come and let you guys know that I appreciate you. Even if I'm speaking terribly today. I've done interviews in front of hundreds of people, and I still here in this setting. I just really wanted to let you know that I truly, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate everything y'all done. And somebody else can have my 35 seconds.
Thank you, Mrs. Perry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ron Sanders?
Mr. Sanders.
Hi, I'm Ron Sanders, 976 Glen Oaks Drive. Wanted to talk a little bit about the city here. One of the things that I noticed when I moved here was there was no requirement for me to have family here for 30 years before I was accepted. I've lived many different places, and I've ran into that in a lot of small towns, military towns all across the United States, where as a military person, me and my family, you're in the military, you're not going to be here, but for a couple years, you're not really a part of the community, so you become a different class person. And I've always been very hyper aware of that particular situation. Growing up on a carnival, traveling all summer, dealing with everything that carnies deal with, I've seen a rather ugly side of humanity that I hope not many people see. And I don't see it here in Nixa. Like Karen Perry just said, it is truly a first-class city. And one of the points that I wanted to make was we have to make sure that we don't invite division and we don't invite ideas where the people will be divided. And there are a few things going on. I commend Cindy for speaking up tonight, because the idea behind what that meeting meant to people when they started researching it on the internet and everything led them to believe something else was going on. And a lot of people may still believe that something else is going on. We'll find out at the meeting. I hope that it goes the way that you intend it to go. It has something to do with communication. It has something to do with understanding people and understanding, the power and the position that you have as the leadership of the city. And whenever things like this go awry, you can't wrangle it back very easily. You have to go back and you have to look. Where did this all start? Where did we make our mistakes that it came to this? And I'm not just talking about this meeting. I'm talking about everything that I've been here for. Everything that I've asked of the city council. But tonight I want to focus on the people of Nixa. Had a lot of feelings about 9/11 this weekend. And, almost 3,000 people, civilians, that didn't write the check that they cashed. The government wrote that check. And, the people like me who were in the military at the time had written that unlimited check. And it really, really hangs over my head that a bunch of people died. I'm very glad that we had the moment of silence for them tonight. But that's one of the things that we have to remember is the people, the citizens, take priority over everything else. And we have the best citizens here in Nixa. And that's why I'm here. I could have very easily said, you know what, I'm going to sell my house. I'm going to move out of here. I don't want to be a part of any controversy. But this city is worth taking ownership of. This city is worth coming up here every Monday night and having a civil disagreement about how it's being run. Because it matters that much to me, even if I have only been living here for 2.5 years, going on 3 years. I'm taking ownership of Nixa, just like every other citizen has, okay? Up in Springfield, you go into some of these places when everybody was masked and you got a lot of hateful stares. You got a lot of people, put your mask on, or other people were like, why are you wearing a mask? And we don't have that here. We have a lot more civility. And people are lending that civility. Despite everything that's happened, the people in Nixa love this city so much, they're willing to tolerate almost anything. And y'all cannot take advantage of that. And I think that some people have lost sight of that. And I'm here to let you know, you need to bring that back into your focus. Because sooner or later, the people are going to get tired of not being heard, and it will wear on them. And that goodwill will eventually erode. And that would be very, very bad for a city that I decided to spend the rest of my life in. This is the first time I've had a chance to set down roots in my whole life. And this is where I chose. And I know a lot of people that feel the same way. So we need to make sure that we make it worth our efforts of planting our roots here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders, and thank you for your service.
Next up is Jeff Belcher.
Mr. Belcher. Before you start, Mr. Belcher, I wanted to take this opportunity to apologize to you for the last meeting, my outburst towards you. When you spoke at the meeting last time, you have the opportunity to speak at this meeting, and regardless of what you say, I don't believe that, I put myself up to a higher level of professionalism in this position than to do that. That being said, when you say things like that people under 60 are on their way out, that kind of triggers me. I mean, we have lots of members of our community here tonight that are over 60, and they make a great impact on our community. And, a fourth of the citizens in this city are over the age of 60, and to, have flippant comments about them having a lesser value than the rest of us, I don't think anyone here, not myself, not members of city, I speak for everyone here, I think, and many members of people in the audience, that's not the kind of comment that I personally take lightly. But again, I apologize for my outburst towards you.
Well, I appreciate that, Mayor.
In Mr. Sanders' era of civility.
However, I'm glad you did bring that point up. I'm going to refute that, obviously. I've got a sunshine request in the works. It's my understanding we do have audio recordings of all the previous meetings, other than just the minutes that are brief and very brief, that are posted online. Last week, you basically said word for word that I personally don't care if 80-year-olds die. When did I say that? I recall stating that age and pre-existing conditions were important facts to know when making these types of decisions regarding the mandate. You asked if I didn't care about those people. And I replied, of course not. I'm not an animal. I made that statement more than once. I'm not an animal. I may have strong beliefs, but I would never say I don't care if somebody was going to die. That's not me. Last meeting, again, you stated 80-year-olds, and then you changed your story to 70-year-olds on your social media. Then you changed it once again to 60. So which was it? 80, 70, 60? Hopefully, with some dignity, I'm sure you've got the power to pull the audio tapes back up, forego the sunshine request, and present it next time where I said I don't care if 80-year-old people die or not. Because I assure you that was false and borderline slanderous. Now, that being the case, I do appreciate the apology for taking my time during my 5 minutes last week. However, I'm not aware if you know it or not. You came back from your little break, your meeting, and you had a hot mic moment that I thought was rather interesting. Your exact words were, once you sat down there and finished eating your snack, "Oh, my phone died." Just like that. It's going to be interesting to see what my phone did after that. But my phone's dead, so, It's all right, I don't need it. It's all right, I'll have something to do when I get home. First words that came to my mouth, or my mind, when I heard that replayed was smarmy. It's just a smarmy action. And you also stated that, I was going to ask you this. What did you refer to when you were saying it'd be interesting to see what my phone did after that? What exactly was that? We talking about the outburst?
Yes, see what comments people would send to me.
I've got a appeasement tool here that might help next time. It works on my grandson beautifully. He's 2. When he has an outburst, this is what he does. And then we'll go to the next business here. Why did every other city around us vote for mandates or against mandates, except for us? Why were you the only mayor to feel the need to use emergency orders to lock us down and mandate masks and which businesses could stay open or not? Every other city voted legislatively. The last meeting you stated that we, the city, need to protect everyone. It's your job. What are you currently doing to protect the lifelong smokers, the obese, those with high blood pressure, those with emphysema, those who die in car wrecks, et cetera, et cetera? Do your emergency powers allow you to make smoking illegal in the city of Nixa? Or allow you to deny food to the obese? Or ban general driving of a motor vehicle in the city limits overall? Do you emergency powers, do they have the ability to force people to take their high blood pressure medication? Well, does it? Can you force people to take blood pressure medication?
No, Mr. Belcher.
Okay. My mother has COPD and still smokes like a freight train. Could you make an ordinance where it's illegal for her to smoke so she can live longer with your emergency powers?
Don't want to take time away from your allotted time.
That's about all I had.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Belcher.
Would you like to respond to any of that?
Sure. Yeah, I'll be happy to respond.
Are we not allowed to hear the response?
Sure. Yeah, you're allowed to hear the response. As far as smokers, we have had an ordinance in the city of Nixa for 15 years that restricts smoking in businesses. We've had a seatbelt law.
I'm talking about the city in general.
You wanted,
In
me
the
to
city
you
limits.
wanted me to respond, Mr. Belcher.
In the city limits.
Yes, yes.
But
There
I can
is-
still smoke in my home.
You can still smoke in your home.
Okay, so that's
Then
not
you
a,
could still, during the mask requirement, you could still not wear a mask in your home, Mr. Belcher. We're talking
Okay.
about public spaces. We also have DWI laws in our city which restrict people's ability to be able to drive when they've been drinking. We also have a seatbelt law in our city which restricts people from
okay,
being
I
able
was
to
talking
drive
car
without their
wrecks.
seatbelt.
Car wrecks kill people.
Yes.
Where nobody
And
said nothing about drinking or seatbelts.
You did say
Cars-
seatbelts, Mr. Belcher.
I
You
never said
You said
seatbelts.
seatbelts. You said, do you have the ability to have an order to have people wear seatbelts? That was one of the statements you just made.
No,
And so,
I did not. Play the audio back. I can show you what I read.
well,
There's no
maybe you
seatbelt mentioned
misspoke
in
from what
there.
you said, but that is what you said.
Ban driving of a motor vehicle in the city. Nothing about a seatbelt.
All right. Well, I assume you're not going to allow me to comment on what you said.
Well, I'm not going to let you twist my words.
Well, I don't believe I am.
I've read it word for word here.
Wrote down
Ban
seatbelts.
driving in the city limits. Nothing about a seatbelt.
You can have a seat, Mr. Belcher. You're taking other people's time.
You don't have anything else to respond? Because I tell you, that's part of it. You sit up here on this bully pulpit when we speak, and we go and sit down, and then here comes the
Yeah,
rebuttal.
you won't allow me to
with no
speak,
chance.
Mr. Belcher.
Well, you're putting words in my mouth. I'm trying to correct it.
I am not.
It's
We
right
have,
here.
you are the one that said 80, and then you changed it to 70 when the age for COVID victims came down. You then changed it to 60 at the last meeting. You said 60, and so I'm just taking that from you. You've also said that in other public settings where you've said people over 60 are on their way out anyway.
Other public
And so-
settings such as, what
Other public settings,
Public settings where?
other public meetings. You've said that.
In council, where it would be recorded?
Other places where it will be recorded, so other meetings. But yes, so but as far as shutting down businesses, you know that is untrue. You know that was a order from the state that shut down the businesses. You continue to put that out on social media, but you know it is untrue.
Well, and
That's
you
the
know-
kind of, and you don't want me to respond, Mr. Belcher. I'm going to stop responding because you're not interested in my response. You're only interested in your own echo chamber and listening to what
I'm
you
going
want
to
to
say the
say.
response was, all the cities decided what businesses were open and closed through the state order. Did you or did you not make a specific order giving you the power to have that decision in the city of Nixa? Unlike everybody else that followed the state, you
We had the exact same ordinance that Ozark had, the exact same ordinance that Springfield had, the exact same. We actually used the Springfield website as our key to what we were using, because we don't have the staff to be able to monitor and come up with those types of guidelines. We utilize other cities that we work with to be able to do those types of things. The same thing you said earlier that no other city did it the same way we did. Ozark did it the exact same way we did it, on the exact same day, and the exact same time, with the exact same order, because we work with other localities in this area. You guys like to say, I always listen to Springfield, I always listen to Ozark. We work together with Springfield, we work together with Ozark to protect all of our residents, because we all travel within Ozark and Springfield and other cities in this area. So we all work together. That is
So
how
you're
these
saying
things
that
work.
Ozark did not vote? Their city council did not vote?
Their city council did vote, and
They
then
did
later
take a
on.
vote. They did it the proper way.
They did vote, and then they turned it down. They voted no, just as our council did. And then 3 months later, when the COVID spiked, their mayor and myself spoke together with our councils, and we both initiated the order at the same time, on the same day. They had the exact same path that we had.
After going against the vote of your council?
They didn't re-vote the council, yes. They went with the vote of the emergency order that they had in place and that we had in place.
Okay. And again, I would really like to hear them audio tapes or have them made available.
Sure. I think we
Can you do that?
can make that happen, can't we? Yep, we will make that happen.
Okay, appreciate it.
Who's
David
next?
Noakes.
Thank you for letting me the opportunity to speak. Myself, like Justin Pippins, I'm very soft-spoken and very nice. Easy to get along with. I'm not a resident of Nixa. I live in Springfield. And another point I'd say, you don't want to be like Springfield. Certain areas and certain aspects you do, but you don't. You don't want to be like Springfield. The Noakes have a long history in Nixa. In 1854, my great-great-grandfather, Nelson Gordon Noakes, came and settled in Nixa, one of the founding families of Nixa. If you go out on North Street, there's a little family cemetery there by the Nixa Rec Center. That is a Noakes family. My descendants are buried there. Next week, the city of Nixa is conducting a listening session on the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion. The city of Nixa is wanting to hear ideas and solutions, keyword solutions, on how the city can ensure everyone is welcome, included, and supported. So the key point, the key word is solutions, which means that the city is saying there's a problem already. I want to give some facts I got from the 2020 census data. In Nixa, you have a poverty rate of 9.2%, which is pretty low. It's half of what Springfield has, and you'll see half of what St. Louis has. Your population increase from 2010 to 2020 was 18%. So obviously you're doing some good things in Nixa, from what I hear and from what I see. You have a good town. St. Louis, compare that, has a poverty rate of 21.8%, population decrease of 5.9%. So they've lost almost 6% of their population. Let's go ahead and throw Houston, Texas in. Houston, Texas is the most diverse city in the United States. It has a poverty rate of 20%. So Nixa's doing really well. Justin Pippins, your facilitator of the meeting, moved from Indianapolis to Springfield. So he moved from a big city and came to a small city. In that article, in that journal of Springfield Business Journal dated 1/27/20, he makes mention that it's intimidating to be a big city person around a lot of small town people that don't think like you or operate like you. So that comes with a lot of questions that I have, and I'll just ask a few of them. You don't have to answer tonight, but just think about them. The words diversity, equity, and inclusion have been associated to the critical race theory worldview and the term systemic racism. Does the city council and think that the community of Nixa is systemically racist? Question 2, does city council and the city leaders think the Nixa community is not welcoming everyone or including and supporting everyone? If so, how did the council and city leaders come to this conclusion? Question 4, as a business, what should be your number one priority? As a community, what should be the number one priority as a community? Is big city thinking or operating better than small town thinking or operating? If so, how is that conclusion made by city council? Is it okay to treat somebody unequally to arrive at equity? Two different terms. Questions. You always find the truth when you ask questions. You never assume that you know what someone's talking about or how they came to that conclusion. If you ever watch the series Columbo on TV, he asks a lot of questions. He seems pretty stupid, but he's pretty smart. He asks questions. So my last question to the city, and once again, I thank you for giving this opportunity to speak, and thanks for the explanation by the young lady there. Is the city really wanting to solve a problem, or are they want to spread a poisonous Marxist ideology? That's the question. I don't think your police department has a very good reputation. I'm a retired police officer from Springfield, served in many capacities. But I don't think your police department is systemically racist. But however, it's an institution just like you guys are an institution. Critical race theory is a Marxist ideology that supports that theory that you are systemically racist. You are not a bad community. You are a good community. I am concerned that you're following right along with Springfield. I'm still in a battle with them. Haven't quite talked to their council yet. I'm waiting my turn. But please do not let this ideology tear Nixa apart and get in your school system. It's terrible. It's anti-American. It's racist. It divides people. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. I didn't catch all your questions, but kind of the. No, yeah, I understand. I try to catch all the questions and then answer them at the end, right? Don't want to take away from your time. So yeah, as we said, it is not critical race theory, critical race training. It's not white privilege training. It is none of that. It is just listening to your neighbors. You know, I don't think any of us believe that Nixa is systemically racist, or is any more than any other small Midwestern town, right? But we can be ahead of the curve. We can listen to those problems, and we always say, if you're going to present a problem, present a solution. Maybe we did take that from some sort of something that came around, who knows, but that's definitely not our particular meaning. Our meaning is, as Cindy said, is to know what the problems are and see what they're out there. As we have a fairly homogeneous group up here, and we can't understand, the lives of everyone else in all the different ways that Cindy was talking about, and all the ways that Mrs. Perry was talking about. There's no way that we can understand all of that. And by listening, just like we do here today, we can understand that better and see if there is anything we need to do. I know I've spoken with Chief and Jimmy before, and Chief Lyles before him, about those types of things and about those types of programs, and making sure that we are thought of in a good way, as far as our hiring practices, as far as our policing practices, as far as all the other things that the city does. And I think we have done a great job of that. And like I said, this is just the next requested step by the strategic plan to ensure that into the future. Thank you. I don't get very many applauds.
Amanda Kastner.
When your parents come to the meeting, you get more applause. That's right?
Good evening, everyone. I'm short. I am a much better writer than a speaker, so I appreciate you letting me read my comments. I would like to, I'm sorry, my name is Amanda Kastner.
I was just about to ask you.
I live at 413 Sequoia Drive.
Thank you.
I agree with the bill to convene a committee to review the city's charter and recommend any proposed amendments thereto. A neutral committee to recommend possible changes, including a review of the recall signature requirement, is needed because, as we've seen recently, it shouldn't take a minimal number of signatures to instigate a full-on recall vote. Only upon egregious actions by an elected official should a recall vote be initiated. Recalls should be reserved for serious matters, not because you disagree with your mayor, and certainly not because a few uneducated, hateful people refuse to wear a mask during a global pandemic. Mr. Mayor, I appreciated the mask mandate, and with the rise of the Delta variant killing many more in our area, I would absolutely support another one. Do not let the loud minority speak for Nixa. Most of us understand what's going on and we support you. Finally, I agree a committee should look into this so our tax funds will not be wasted on any further frivolous recalls. Instead of embarrassing us in news stories all the way to the Kansas City Star, why not wait until election time and vote out the candidates who no longer speak for you? This is called the democratic process. If these concerned citizens of Nixa were really concerned, they would understand that they are wasting money and embarrassing us. On Tuesday, November 2nd, I will be voting to keep Mayor Steele, and I encourage the board and all Nixa citizens to be Nixa strong and stand with Steele. I would also like to take a moment to speak about the LEAD initiative. I would like to, sorry, I have never spoken before either, so again, I'm a writer. America is becoming more diverse, and Nixa should absolutely keep up, if not take the lead. If the Facebook comments for the program are any indication, we need to hear from the diverse members of our community so the loud minority doesn't drown them out. As the press release stated, we are stronger together when we are in Nixa united. I appreciate it. I was done really quickly. If you have any questions or comments for me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your support.
Amber Thompson.
We'll try to, we normally don't allow applause from the audience, so let's try to keep that to a minimum, please.
Hi, my name is Amber Thompson, and I live at 304 Scott Wayne. I'm here this evening requesting to say a prayer, if that's okay.
To say a prayer?
A prayer.
Oh, sure, yes.
Okay, if we could all bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, as we are gathered here this evening for the City Council, I ask you, Lord, to protect us and guide us to be the best we can be. Lord, I ask us to give us the wisdom to understand every topic that will be discussed, enlighten our minds, be open-minded, and let your love be upon us. May this meeting bring success and growth to our community. We thank you, Father, for this precious time that you have given us, and may we find strength in our diversity and see the courage to live into what is written on every piece of currency in this nation. In God we trust. Help us to keep your word in our hearts that we may not sin against you. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Should have heard at the beginning. Cindy.
Catherine Berg. Catherine Berg.
Catherine Burke.
Okay. I'm not a speaker or a writer.
You can say your name, if you can just say your name and
Oh,
what city you're from. I think
okay.
that's what we're going with now, right?
Yes, my name is Kathy. I'm from Nixa, Kathy Berg, or Catherine, as you said. I just wanted to thank you for hearing me this evening, and it's wonderful to see your faces. Last time I was here, y'all had masks on, so I didn't even know what you looked like, so you look wonderful. I'm here because I would like to encourage you to vote no on the Nixa home charter. And I wasn't quite sure why it was up for discussion and vote. I guess this is your second vote this evening. But I guess the last woman that spoke does know. And let me just say, I'll go door to door and get more signatures if you need me to, so there's no reason to change the charter. I think we should keep it as it is at this time. And I wanted to thank you for what you're doing. I think it's the verbiage, because I was planning on going to that meeting because it sounds a lot like critical race theory, because you're using the words, inclusion, and yeah, those, you might want to change the name of what you're doing, because that is used in critical race theory. under the guise of other words, but what you're doing is wonderful. I work with adults that are handicapped, and when I have one at my home here in Nixa, she gets free time, so she can walk by herself to Nixa Walmart and back, but we're lacking sidewalks. And so it's very dangerous for her to be walking on uneven ground and in the gullies or whatever along the side. But I don't know if that is the job of the community like that, but you said it did make change, or was that under another department like the city, different city department?
If you want to send us an email to the city, we'll look into that, to your
Okay.
location, make sure it's on our plan for the future sidewalks.
Okay. I love your timer up there. It wasn't there last time. So thank you very much for hearing me tonight, and I will probably see you then Wednesday, the 22nd. Okay, thank you.
Since the home rule charter item is an item on the agenda, we ask you only speak to items that are not on the agenda. But thank you very much for your comments. Who's next?
Barbara Fleming.
Hello, my name is Barbara Fleming, 907 Yellowstone Street, and I just wanted to come and thank you, Mayor Steele, for enacting the mask order. It was needed. It kept us safer, and many cities and states enacted it as well, many around here. Nixa schools were safer because they also enacted a mask order, kept our students in school, other than the 20 million kids across the country that didn't get to school. So again, I thank you. I hope I too will be voting on November the 2nd against the recall. I don't think it's necessary. And I just want to mention Kansas City and St. Louis have reenacted their mask orders in August. And I was just up in Kansas City last week, and you needed to wear a mask when you were inside, whether you were vaccinated or not. So, again, it serves a purpose. This is a horrible thing that our country and the world are experiencing right now. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fleming.
Bethany Morgan.
Charter, yeah.
Okay. She wants to speak on the charter, so
Okay.
she'll come up
Okay.
during the charter.
Sounds good. That's it. All right, we'll leave the visitor section open. If anyone else would like to speak that didn't get signed up, we'll let you sign up at this point. Sure.
If you don't mind, I just need you to fill out a speaker card after you talk.
Just say your name and address there, and then fill out the card after.
Hello, my name is Julie Hilterbrand. I live at 712 East Merrimack Lane. And I wanted to speak right now just on, first of all, the recall, and secondly, the LEAD initiative. The recall, I agree with a couple of folks who have been up here, and I'm not at all saying let's cancel the recall. I understand that that has to happen. Things were done as they are set forth currently in the charter. It has to happen, and so that's where it is. But I don't support it. Mayor, I do thank you for enacting that mask mandate. I know it's not something you did flippantly. I know it's not something you did easily. And I know it's something you did because you thought it was the best for our city. So thank you very much. And then secondly, the LEAD initiative. I am clearly very white. I have lived in Southwest Missouri my whole life. I was born in Springfield, raised in Buffalo. I've lived in Nixa for, it'll be 12 years in December. I have lived here in this area my whole life. I don't know what it's like to come from another country or another region and move here and feel like an outsider. I don't know what it's like to be a member of the LGBTQ community. I am incredibly straight. I don't know what it's like to be a racial minority. I am, again, very, very white. I've sunburned walking 500 feet from my front door to my mailbox and back. So, and I'm not making that up, I really have. I believe every single citizen of this city deserves to have their voice heard, deserves to feel welcome and included, and deserves to feel like they belong. And if there is something standing in the way of even one single member of this city feeling like they belong, then I think we need to know that, and we need to take whatever steps we can to address that and to resolve that so that everyone feels like they're included and wanted and valued here. When Karen Perry was up here speaking about the parents who have pulled their kids out because of bullying, because they're being told repeatedly to kill themselves. I heard several members of the audience gasp and say things like, oh my gosh, that's terrible, they're correct, it is terrible. And then those same people came up here and railed against the LEAD initiative. And I just thought that was very interesting, that we have members of the city who recognize how terrible it is to have 12-year-olds and 15-year-olds and 10-year-olds wanting to kill themselves because they're different, and then to come up here and say that once they're adults, they're not wanted. And so that's why I think the LEAD initiative is incredibly important. And I thank you for arranging it and putting it on. And I just want to ask that we make sure that there's enough safety presence there, whether that's police officers or whatever else, to ensure that everyone feels like they have a safe place to come and speak their mind and speak their heart and tell their experiences in this city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to speak? Oh, yes, sir.
My name is Jack Carnes. I'm at 622 North Maplewood Hills Road here in Nixa. I want to say I wasn't going to speak, but hearing the progressive speak earlier in this forum, I feel compelled to encourage all of us to continue to pursue our rights and privileges as citizens of our great country, and that is the democratic process. If they like, I have many friends and associates that live in Canada, where many of them would love to move to the United States of America because we have freedoms and rights that they don't have at this time. So if you want to give up your freedoms and rights to one person, and in this case, it's our mayor, to tell us how to live, how to take care of ourselves, then I would encourage you to go to a socialist country and one right next to us, our neighbor in Canada. So that's all I got to say, is that I don't think it should be one person, whether it be our president or our mayor, telling us how to live our rights or how to live the way we want to live. And I don't want to give up my privileges. I don't want to give up my rights as a citizen of this country, much less as a citizen of this great city of Nixa. But I do appreciate your service, each one of you, to this great city. And I know it's not an easy job to handle, to tackle, and to hear the negativity that may be expressed. But I just believe in this great country and this great city, and I don't want to give it up to one person. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, sir. I don't think your cards worked this time, Cindy.
My name is George Barankovich. I live at 2037 North Equestrian Lane in Nixa. You guys are amazing. Wow. I mean, you sat up here and just like took a beating, and you're really nice about it. So I commend you. Holy mackerel, really, honestly. So I moved here from California 3 months ago, and I lived in California. I understand what's going on over there very well. And I just hope that Nixa doesn't turn into another California. Give you a little bit of background on myself. I was a former field artillery officer. I was in Desert Storm. I'm a survivor of chemical warfare. I also had an additional duty as a nuclear chemical target analyst. So it was my job to determine how our unit would survive when we were the first unit that was hit by Scud missiles with chemical warfare. I'm a survivor of chemical warfare, and I challenge people that are pro-mask to prove to me that that mask has saved you. Prove it. If you took one of those little flimsy little masks and gave it to me in the foxhole, I'd tell my battery commander to get lost. Really? Those masks, you can watch Dr. Ted Noel on YouTube, and he vapes through the mask. Those things are gaping holes. What is the size of a virus? Here's a good example of the size of a virus. Can you see anything there? Because you can't see it. Do the math on it. It's 1/1,000,000,000th of a micrometer. You can't see it. Those masks prove to me that a mask works. They don't. So what you're doing, I want to help you. Don't make mask mandates. If people want to wear it, treat everybody fairly. Be nice to everybody. Because your job, you're getting beat up for this stuff, right? Don't get beat up for it. Hey, if people want to wear it, let them wear it. It's a free country. I personally, if a store wants me to wear a mask, do you know what I wear? I actually wear an M70 protective mask, a real mask. You have to have a complete seal. Thank you so much. God bless you all. We all need more Jesus and more love. We need more love, and you need to be loved on. Thanks. All right, take care now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, yeah. You can do it afterwards.
My name's Andy Davis, and I do think it's healthy to have a speaker come in and speak on different issues. I just don't know, is the city totally aware of what this speaker spoke about last October? Are you guys aware of that?
I think we understand he was asked by the Library Center to do a speech on a specific topic, and he did a speech on that.
And what was that topic?
I don't know, actually.
I have it right here if you need a little. Justin Pippin's October 17th, 2020. What is white privilege? We need to talk. I have no problem with difference of opinion. That's very healthy. I've told you all many times that my wife is very liberal. I'm very conservative, and you know how that goes. So it's just, we disagree on issues, which is healthy. But I mean, it's good to have difference of opinion, but I don't think it's good to have a speaker come in like that who's spoken on this issue. So.
I mean, like I said, he was asked by the Library Center to speak specifically on that. I don't even know if that's what he spoke on. I don't know anyone that was there. So I don't know. Okay, yeah.
But
I don't know. We're using him as a trained facilitator. He's a SCORE trained facilitator. He volunteers with groups across the area, and so that's where we're using him as.
I'm just saying, it's advertised on his Facebook page, correct?
I assume, yeah. I don't know, but I'm gonna sure.
So, I mean, I'm just saying, in this environment with everything going on, everybody has strong issues on both sides. You really think it's healthy to bring in this? You know, like I said, I respect like African American stuff like that. Like some of my best heroes are like Bob Gibson and Lou Brock. And when I'm in Kansas City, I take my kids to see the Negro League Hall of Fame, like the Baseball Hall of Fame, and teach them about the awesome players like Satchel Paige, and teach them about the heroes like Rosa Parks and stuff. But this is just dividing the city. I mean, this is, I don't know if you guys thought about this or what, but I mean, what do you think some of the like responses are going to be? I'm just, oh. I'm sorry. I just get emotional sometimes because ever since I've started speaking, like members of Nixa have like contacted me about different issues and like say Thank you for speaking up for us. You know, we might not even agree with you. I mean, like I said, this is going to come to total shock to everybody, but I do respect Amy. Even though I've come at her on many issues, you know, I'm not a liberal. I don't go that way, you know, but I do respect Amy. So I actually had a family member sing with Amy on Jury Singers years ago. So, you know, she's a dang good singer, you know, aren't you? So I can't say that, but yeah, she just warned me back then. She's like, you're a very good singer, but your issues are far, far left, you know, and so it's just, I mean, I've been on the committee for 4 or 5 months now, and you're already wanting to change our home rule charter, bring in controversial speakers. I mean, we got 2.5 more years of Amy being on here for good or bad. I mean, there's going to be, you know, contentious issues, but another couple of things I'd like to ask, are you still speaking with hospital CEOs on COVID on a regular basis? Updates,
We haven't had one in a while, no.
Okay.
We did have, Doug, we had one a few weeks ago who came in and presented to council a few weeks ago.
What are they saying, or what are you guys hearing? Is this Delta variant more dangerous than the original COVID strain? I mean, what are you?
Yeah.
Because I've been hearing it is.
Yeah, I mean, as far as statistical numbers, our rates aren't as high now as they were last year. You know, they're in October when they peaked. So they haven't peaked again, and they've actually started to go down. It's kind of based off what he was saying. It's based off of our increased vaccination rate in the county. So
Well, I'm just hearing from the media, you know, on both sides, it's
Yeah.
more contagious, and you know, it's hitting kids younger. I mean, if it's more contagious and more dangerous now, why are we not masking now? I mean, you say science, and I do respect that. You know, like I said, I proudly voted for you twice, but I'm not doing that anymore. You know, but, you know, I still like you as a person. It's just, you know, this whole narrative, it's science, most people would agree that this Delta variant is more dangerous than it was last year. So why are we not masking now, right?
the last time we met with them, the recommendation was not to, so.
Was not to
that's-
mask during
yes.
Delta.
That was the.
But it was a recommendation back a year ago when we were just in this thing like 6 months.
Yep, very true. We've learned a lot since then, right?
And another couple issues, it's saying that we've been doing, other cities are doing, that is absolutely not true. I made the point like Republic, for example, they've never had a citywide mask, is that correct?
That is true.
So us and Ozark were together on issues, but just say that every city did the same thing is not true. That is just,
No.
so, thanks for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
So on that, I'd just like to respond real quick. I joined College Republicans in 2015, and I ended up being the president of College Republicans in 2018. The number one issue at the time was Republican students wanting to bring speakers to campus. And many people were like, well, it's going to be too divisive, so let's not do it. And at times, the campuses would end up canceling the events. And so a big issue was, well, that's a violation of our freedom of speech. We want to have these people come, show up to the event, and you might learn something. So I just want to say, show up to the lead event, you might learn something.
Thank you, Mr. Orr. One more call.
Can I say something?
Oh, go ahead. Oh, sorry. That's Ms. Graham.
I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. We've been encouraged by Mr. Sanders and Mr. Belcher to try to get more people to come to meetings and do vote and things like that. And personally, anytime I talk to somebody, I ask them, come to city council meetings. You'll see what's going on. So I want to thank every single one of you, whether you spoke or not tonight, for being here, for representing the city, for representing yourself, and for being a part of this and letting us know how you think and how you feel. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well spoken, Ms. Graham. All right, one more call. Oh, yes, ma'am.
My name's Melissa Bella. I live in Nixa, Missouri. Am I supposed to give my address?
As long as you write it on the little card when you leave. So that's it.
I'm new to Nixa. I've been here almost 3 years, moved here from California, born and raised Missouri, St. Louis. St. Louis, they had segregation when I was going to school, and we just moved from town to town to town to town because, not saying because who moved in or anything like that, but people would move in, run down, so I've been chased around the United States all my life. I know what DEI is. I know it's a religion. I believe what the first gentleman that came up here, I 100% agree with what he said. It is a religion, and it is Marxist, and it is fascist, and I believe that it will bring great grief to Nixa, Missouri. Before moving here, I investigated this town, and I thought, wow, it's Christian conservative, Republican town, and I want to go there to retire. I moved here from California, and California is a mess, a total 100% mess. There's a recall going on right now with that mayor. I don't think he'll be recalled because I think that the election is rigged, and I don't think Larry Elder will get in. He's a black man. He's been egged at. He's been mistreated. He's been severely abused, and he is a black man. But he has an R by his name, so he's been abused. And I think that our country is changing, and it's not changing for the good, it's changing for the worse. I don't believe in this whole pandemic. I believe that it's driven by fear, and I refuse to live in fear because perfect love casts out fear. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. I follow Jesus Christ and the word of Jesus Christ. I'm not using the word Christian because I believe there are a lot of CINOs in our world today. Christian in name only. I also believe there's rhinos, Republican in name only. I believe it is abusive, what we are doing, now this part makes me cry, what we are doing to our children. We are masking them and we are shutting them up. What did they do to slaves? They masked them. What do you do when you're robbing somebody and raping them, a woman? You put your hand over their mouth. That's what we're doing to children. We're doing that to children. I watched these council meetings on YouTube. I cried when I heard $300,000 for incentives to push vaccines on children. They have no voice. Why are we doing this? I don't understand this. We are killing children. First we aborted them, now we're using aborted fetal tissue inside the vaccine to kill more children. I know some of you don't agree with me, but it's the truth. It's the honest to God's truth. I don't watch the media because I refuse to be fear-mongered. I refuse not to live because of a pandemic that has been put out there by all you politicians, and you've all been brainwashed into believing what's going on in this country. Stop it. Please, in the name of God, stop it, because every single one of you are going to be judged someday, and every one of you are going to be held accountable to God. And he's going to ask you why you made the decisions you made. And trust me, he's at the door. Our country is being judged right now. He's coming back. Be prepared. He's going to ask each and every one of you why you made the decisions you made towards our children, our innocent children who have no voice. First you abort them, now you're going to kill them with the vaccine. Thank you, and God bless all of you.
Thank you.
Ma'am?
Anyone else? As far as that, I don't believe that I'm not sure whether 300,000, that must have been some sort of math that we didn't figure out. I don't think we had ever even considered anything even close to that for incentives, and we definitely weren't going to incentivize children. We were just going with kind of what the state had done, but we haven't brought that up for some period of time.
It was on August 9th on YouTube. She said $300,000 in incentives to push the vaccine. It's on a video. You can watch it on video.
Yeah, I don't believe that was anything that was ever proposed to move forward from that. Anyone else? All right, we will close the visitor section. Move on to our proclamations. Now you get to listen to me talk for a long time. It's a lot of fun. So we have two proclamations this week. First proclamation is for Constitution Week. Get my glasses here. Whereas September 17th, 2021 marks the 234th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th through September 23rd as Constitution Week, and therefore I, Brian Steele, by the virtue of authority vested in me as mayor for the city of Nixa, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd, 2021 as Constitution Week. I urge all citizens to study the Constitution and reflect on the privileges of being an American and all the rights and responsibilities and honors that holds. And we didn't get the Daughters of the American Revolution to attend, but I will pass this on to them. Our second proclamation is for Recycling Week. Seems a little less grandiose, but whereas it is critical that all citizens of Nixa, as citizens of Nixa, we create a clean, healthy, and stable environmental foundation for our children and future generations, whereas the city of Nixa is committed to increasing its recycling efforts to preserve our natural environment, and whereas recycling decreases the amount of waste sent to landfills and incinerators and conserves valuable natural resources such as timber, water, and minerals, and whereas aluminum and steel cans, plastic bottles, jugs, paper, and cardboard are all household items that can be recycled, and whereas recycling mitigates pollution by reducing the need to collect new raw materials, saves energy, and reduces greenhouse gas emissions, and whereas reducing, reusing, and recycling plays a critical role in the city of Nixa of achieving a more sustainable future, whereas the goal is to increase the public awareness of the value and importance of recycling, encouraging citizens to take advantage of the recycling services available in our community. Now, therefore, I, Brian Steele, Mayor for the City of Nixa, do hereby proclaim September 20th through the 26th, 2021 as Recycling Week in the City of Nixa. We do have great recycling programs. I hope everyone will take advantage of those. I also did a proclamation yesterday. I've been very proclamation heavy this week. I did a proclamation for September 10th and 11th this last weekend as 9/11 commemoration weekend in the City of Nixa. We had a couple of great events, one at the parks and one at the Nixa Junior High hosted by the Ministerial Alliance, Nixa Ministerial Alliance. All right, we'll move on to our presentations. Mr. Tyson.
Good evening. It is that time of decade for us to be talking about redistricting. So if you're not aware, and I think at least everyone on the council is, the census just recently released what they're referring to as their redistricting product. So they haven't released all of the 2020 census data yet, but they have released enough population data at the block level so that states and localities can proceed with their redistricting processes without much delay. So several weeks ago, we received access to that data, and Scott Gobby, our city planner, imported that from the Census Bureau into our GIS, and so we now have what we need to proceed with the redistricting process. So just as an overview of some of the procedural issues that we're facing, this is required that we do this every decennial census, following every decennial census, required by our charter, required to be approved by an ordinance of the city council, and we have to publish notice of that ordinance, and I think publish the ordinance itself in a newspaper of general circulation in the area at least 3 weeks prior to having a vote on that ordinance. The charter requires that we have 3 districts here in Nixa. Each district must have as much as possible equal population, but it must also be compact and contiguous, which can create a little bit of tension, as you'll see here in just a minute. We can't violate the Voting Rights Act, although I think here in Nixa we would have to try very, very hard to do that. I suggest that we don't try and just focus on what we're trying to do here. And it should be completed ideally prior to the filing of the deadline for filing of candidates for the next municipal election, which is coming up on December 7th, which of course doesn't give us as much time as we normally would have. This data, of course, is delayed for I think a variety of reasons, most of which are pandemic related in coming to us. So Over time, we've got some criteria that have been developed here in Missouri for how to do local redistricting. Some of this is contained in our Constitution, some of it in our local charter, and some of it comes from decisions that were made by judges on cases, lawsuits concerning redistricting here in Missouri. So these are listed in order of importance or priority. First is population equivalence, which enshrines political equality in our American brand of democracy that is most often phrased as one person, one vote. So you want to have districts have roughly equal population so that each of you are representing roughly the equal number of people so that your votes weigh the same in terms of population. It's probably worth noting here that when we're talking about population numbers in redistricting, it is people, just people, not voters, not adults, it's all people. So you represent everybody in Nixa regardless of their age or whether they're a registered voter. You can use as a criteria retention of existing neighborhoods so that you're not splitting neighborhoods in half, one neighborhood being in one district, one in another. Retention of precinct boundaries, so voter precincts are important. I spent a little over an hour with the county clerk this afternoon talking about this issue. They're also delayed in getting information from the census, so they're not actually going to redraw their precincts, certainly not before the November election, because there's multiple elections in the county. They don't want to confuse anybody. So they'll be redoing precincts following our redoing of districting, which I think is good. I think that's beneficial so that they can line up the precincts with the boundaries to prevent confusion at the polls. Cohesion of other existing communities of interest. A good example might be elementary school boundaries. I did review our elementary school boundaries at present. Not terribly helpful as a standard in this case. They've got some contiguity issues. Of course, they're using completely different criteria than what we're trying to accomplish here. Did look at that in the process of studying this. Retention of historic boundaries. We don't have any official or legal historic boundaries here in the city of Nixa. No housing districts that are officially sanctioned as a historic housing district of the city where people are residing. So again, not a huge concern. And then lastly, consideration of incumbency, which is just merely don't redistrict out a sitting council member if you don't have to, or if it's not required in order to meet some higher priority. So the way that you go about this is you take what the total population is, which we looked at all of the blocks that we received from the census and just totaled them, and that came to 23,278. If anybody saw a number that was 23,300 something, I think that number was out there at one point. I believe that was an estimate provided by the census earlier on. This is what you get when you total up all of the redistricting product data that they gave us, is 23,278. You divide that by 3 districts, so the ideal district population for us is 7,759 people. Go back up here. This map shows you what our current state is. So these are our current districts and the current populations from the 2020 census. We're 9.32 square miles, total population of just over 23,000. District 1 now has over 10,000 people in it. District 2 has a little over 6,900, and District 3 only a little bit over 6,200. So obviously we've got some work to do on redistricting to get that back into rough equivalence. So here's a table that shows, I'm about to show you a couple of options that staff put together for you to look at as illustration, also for your consideration. The left side of the graph shows our current situation with those population numbers I just showed you, and then how that deviates from our ideal district. So obviously, District 1 needs to shrink by about 2,300, and the other 2 need to grow. District 2 needs to grow by over 800. District 3 needs to grow by 1,500. So staff, in using those criteria and trying to stick as much as possible to major roads as dividing lines, because part of the issue, although it doesn't come out in the legal criteria that I just mentioned, part of the issue is communicating to people about where their district is compared to where they live. And that's obviously a huge concern for the county clerk as well, who's responsible for staffing these polls and explaining to people why they're getting this ballot or that ballot. It's always more helpful if you can say, hey, if you live south of 14 and east of 160, you're in this district. So as much as possible, we tried to use major landmark roads, major arterials as the dividing line to accomplish this. And you can see kind of where we landed in terms of trying to strike at that ideal population of 7,759, while still maintaining compact and contiguous districts that made sense, that didn't split up anybody's neighborhood, and that didn't use strange dividing lines that would be difficult to communicate with people about. So the option A that's shown there, what we can't do, kind of the limits that the court have set in terms of how close is close enough for population equivalence, what they've said is you need to be within a 10% deviation from a 10% total, and this is, I'm probably about to confuse a bunch of people, and I'm really, really sorry, but it confused me. It took me like all day and several conversations to sort it out myself. A total of 10% of deviation from the ideal between the largest and the smallest districts that are being proposed. So in case of option A, you see the percent deviation there. What you would do is you take the percent deviation of the smallest one and the largest district, add them together, and that needs to be less than 10. So in that case, it's somewhere around 5. You add the 3.05 to the 2.73. Option B, which as you'll see, is more compact than option A, but doesn't get as close on the population numbers. And again, the population numbers are priority number one here. But we wanted to show a couple of examples of how it could look different. That obviously has a higher deviation. It's 5.93 plus 3.21, so it's getting up there closer to the 10. So it doesn't hit on the population as well, but as you'll see, it is more compact. So I put these on some slides that we can click back and forth through. This is our current district arrangement. This is that option A. And if I click back and forth, you can kind of see where we take from 1 and give to 2, and where we take a little bit from 2 and give to 3 to make the population numbers work out. So basically, we're using Northview and 160 and Main as the dividers and just kind of swapping those major areas between them, between the districts, to try to get as close as we can so that we end up with districts that meet the target on the numbers, but also are compact and contiguous as we can get them. Again, if you look at this option B, you see there's more compact, right? It's more contained. Highway 160 is more of a divider, so it's a bit easier to talk to people about. But again, you're getting into that percent deviation that's closer to that 10%. So there's pros and cons, I think, to both of these. I'll flip back through them just a couple more times so you can kind of see how this changes in terms of geography. I showed both of these to the county clerk, asked for them feedback. They didn't see any red flags or anything we can't work with from a precinct level. They thought that, like I do, option B is probably easier to talk to the typical resident about where their district is. But again, there's some numbers concerns there, and the numbers are supposed to be priority number one. So this is a calendar that shows where we're at. That's the yellow date, September 13th, and where we need to be before this candidate filing opens on December 7th. The red dates are council meetings. And again, remember that we have to publish this 3 weeks in advance of having a vote on it. So the time frame is crunched. It doesn't leave a whole lot of time for, I know, the discussion and deliberation that I think this probably deserves, and additionally, the transparency. So we've got some work to do, not a lot of time to do it. My recommendation is, and my wife will kill me if she finds out I volunteered for another night meeting, but I would be willing to work with a subcommittee if that was the council's desire. We would have to do our work very quickly, probably in the next few weeks or so. Or we could work with Drew in the communications department to put together something just to get it out there. How were these things formed? So that there is some transparency, so that we've got a sufficient amount of sunshine on this process. So again, that's my recommendation. Not a lot of time to fit all of that in. I think in talking to the county clerk, they would very much appreciate if council could have this approved by that November 8th meeting. The reason being is once the city's done doing their work, they then have to carry that ball the rest of the way to that April election. And there's a lot of work that they have to do as well in terms of getting everything switched over for all of the residents who may now be in a different district. So a tight time frame, which is unfortunate, but yet where we stand given where we're at now and just getting the data from the Census Bureau. So in a better position than the state and federal government, if relatively speaking, but still not a great. So that's what it looks like. Again, that's my recommendation is make sure we get that transparency on here, and I'm happy to help however I can with that, and also happy to answer any questions that anyone has as well.
If we have the subcommittee meeting, do we have the technology with our GIS, we could come in here and play with stuff?
Yes, that would be my idea.
I
is
don't know what
we
better
would just-
terminology to use for it, but
You-
take this block and make it in the other group to see what that does to the number.
Yes, right. I think you'll find it will fry everyone's brains, but I think that is probably what we should do.
Well, we might, as council members, probably have some idea of, you know, how neighborhoods break and how, you know, moving by one street might not be an issue for their district, so. Any other questions?
Have we taken into consideration different developments that are recently starting? So like south of here, there's that huge neighborhood going on. Cheyenne Valley has the big one going on, and there's other ones. So, because I mean, what happened last time was all the development went towards District 1, which is why there's over 10,000 people in District 1.
Right.
And so do we have those numbers? Granted, we don't know how many people are gonna live in each house or whatever, but we could get a decent estimate and then use that information to add to those areas, so we're not doing it this way, and then next thing we know, there's an extra 1,000 people inside District 3.
Right, that's an excellent question. Obviously, my temptation and my mode of thinking as a planner is to do exactly what you're describing. But in this situation, that is somewhat speculative. It's an unknown. And so at this point, what's required is that we use what is known in terms of where people are at and how many are there, rather than using a speculation or an estimate about something that may or may not happen in the future. So for that reason, no, that is not taken into consideration, is not one of the criteria that have been set out by law to be considered. That being said, just like last time, we will be, given the rate of growth that we have here in Nixa and in Christian County in general, it won't be a long time, obviously, before things change. But what's required of us at this point is to hit the target with the 2020 numbers, and we got to deal with what happens later, rather than trying to project it now and deal with it now.
Gotcha. Thanks.
So what paperwork do we need to have this subcommittee, Mr. Woodman?
Well, if that's council's direction, we'll need to get a resolution together, which is going to create even more of a crimp on the timeline. So if that's something the council wants to consider, my recommendation would be to impanel a special meeting this week so that we can get that resolution adopted and approved to get this committee established quickly. And unless, I mean, the concern I have there is waiting a whole nother, until the next council meeting gets together, is going to put even more of a delay on the timeline.
So do we want to put a delay, or do we want to have a special meeting for that purpose later this week?
A meeting's fine. It'd be similar to the one for the fireworks for the high school, where it's
Like 5 minutes? And
yeah, it's
move
not
on,
gonna be
right? Everybody can handle that? Okay. Who would like to volunteer? Probably be best to have one from each current district.
I'll do it. I'll do it.
So that's one, or three, that's 3, 2, and 1. All right, there you go. Thank you for volunteering. Did you get that, Cindy? Okay. Ms. Histrat from District 1, Ms. Graham from District 3, and Mr. Lucas from District 2. Sean. Yep.
When would you like to have the special meeting for the resolution?
What works best for
Can we
everyone?
do it tomorrow?
Thursday?
I got
How many people are
I
going
got
to
Police
Citizens
Academy.
Police Academy? We can do it right before Citizens Police Academy.
It starts at 6, so
We do
Do you want to do a 5:30?
5:50? 5:30?
yeah.
5:30
5:30?
Thursday night
Okay, 5:30 Thursday night. Yep. Here, yep.
here. I will get that posted
Okay.
online.
I didn't look at my calendar, but I assume that's okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Tyson.
Thank you.
So we'll take a 5-minute recess and come back and get to the ordinances and resolutions. We'll call the meeting. I don't think this, oh, there we go. Now it's working. We'll call the meeting back to order. And move on to our first reading bill 2021-091.
First reading, Council Bill Number 2021-091, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa rezoning the real property generally located along the 300 block of South Nicholas Road from an R1 district to an M1 district.
Thank you. Drew, do you mind to bring up that visual I sent you? This bill will rezone approximately 7 acres that is located near the 300 block of South Nicholas Street, but not on the 300 block. If you can zoom in just a little bit, Drew. And I need to apologize. We place signage, as is required by law, on the frontage of the property that is subject to the rezone, which meant in this case, this is all one entire tract here of land. So we placed a sign on the Gregg Road frontage for property that's being rezoned over here that's actually much closer to Nicholas. So to all those people who called me asking what's happening on Gregg Road, many apologies. Nothing is happening on Gregg Road. It's all happening right here in this 7 acres that's has the black border and the hashed lines. That's approximately 7 acres currently zoned R1 that was just recently combined with the light industrial tract that's located immediately to the south. Now that's all one tract. The owner of the land has applied to have it rezoned to match the land that it's now going to be joined with, which is M1 light industrial. Again, it's currently zoned R1 single family. The city does, now that with the tracts combined, the city does enjoy access to Nicholas Road through that other site, enjoys access to municipal water through that other site, enjoys access to municipal sanitary sewer through that site that it is now joined with. Planning and Zoning Commission approving that lot line adjustment at their last meeting. It has immediate access to municipal electric as well. All of those are of capacity to serve this particular request. I do want to make one point. This is located in the Oakmont Lift Station Basin, which I know we've talked about before, and I'll continue to bring that up on development proposals within that basin, simply because at some point in the future there may be a development proposal for which that becomes a major issue and question, and I don't want it to ever be a situation where we didn't talk about this before and now it's a big deal. So I want to continue to bring that up and highlight it. This is within that basin, but I just want to point out the reason staff's not saying, hey, this is a red flag concern. A couple of reasons. One, it's already zoned for development, that being the R1 single family district, which would have a significant impact in terms of the amount of impact it would have on that sewer. We're moving that into the light industrial district, where the probability of it having a greater impact, I think, is relatively limited. And in this particular case, given that the site that it's being joined to and the proposed land use for it, although I know I preach frequently don't talk about what the applicant says they're going to do, but excuse me, in this case, I think there's some reasons to expect that the use of this as an industrial site is somewhat limited, and so I actually think the city may end up ahead in terms of impact on that particular lift station. But I do want to bring that up because it is in the basin and it does have the potential to have some impact. The Planning and Zoning held a public hearing on this issue and voted unanimously to recommend its approval. Staff is recommending its approval. You can see here it does adjoin dissimilar zoning, just as the current light industrial site does. It'll have general commercial zoning immediately to the west, R1 single family zoning immediately to the north and to the east, and then has its same zoning, M1, adjoining it to the south. Upon development, of course, it would be required under the city's current code to install screens where it adjoins the dissimilar zoning districts in order to provide some screening and buffering between those. Those sites, although it has that zoning, all of that is currently undeveloped and vacant at the present time. So there's no adjoining existing land uses to speak of. So again, Planning and Zoning recommended approval, staff's recommending approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions? Thank you, Johnson. Any discussion? We will open this up for the public hearing. If you'd like to speak to this item, you can do so at this time.
My name is Ron Sanders. I live here in Nixa. Are there any plans, or has anybody proposed any plans for commercial, whether it's light or medium or any type of commercial over on that side of town near that area that would be supporting the light industrial?
So it's currently zoned, like I said, to the west of that along Nicholas is all commercially zoned, and then also along 14 on the north side of that, like most of Highway 14 is all zone commercial.
Okay.
I don't know about that little block. We'll have to talk to the owners about that squaring off. Yeah, the church owns the one on the west side, yeah. Yeah, and then the big red block over by Casey's is all commercial as well, yeah. We'll leave the public hearing open and close the public hearing. Any further discussion? All right, move on to our next ordinance. Second reading, Bill 2021-087.
Second reading, Council Bill Number 2021-087, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa establishing a Charter Review Commission to review the city's charter and recommend any proposed amendments thereto.
Mayor and Council, during the last City Commission meeting, City Council meeting, City Administrator Lyles introduced this ordinance, which would bring Home Rule Charter Commission together to review possible changes for the charter. Since that meeting, we received census data, as we heard this evening from Mr. Tyson, and how that will change the boundaries of the current council districts. Depending on the boundary change and how long the commission takes to review the charter, it could potentially create a scenario where the Home Rule Charter Commission has members that may change districts during that period. As a reminder, the charter states that that the commission would be made up of 9 qualified voters for the city, and no district can have more than 3. So it's pretty much equally divided for 3 from each of those. Until the new districts are set, we don't know if the commission members Mr. Lyles presented will still be in the current districts. So with that said, council could elect to either proceed with the approval of this ordinance this evening or postpone the ordinance until the districts are redrawn, which would allow for us staff to reevaluate whether those members fit and then bring that back to you at that time. So if you have any questions for us, we'd be happy to help any way we can.
I think we'd asked Mr. Woodman before, but the committee doesn't have to be made up of the current membership of that it's currently made up of, right? The council has the ability to reassign all the positions.
Yeah, so
Okay.
there currently isn't a charter review commission. So
Okay.
the council has the power under the charter and under the state laws on this issue to impanel one from time to time as they deem it advisable. And so you create it again. So
Okay.
you can elect to.
So we
appoint
just
whoever
started,
you
we had
want.
started with the people that still lived here from the last time, but we don't have to do that. We could
No,
we
as
could
long
just
as
start
they
all
meet
over
the
again from scratch.
qualifications, you can appoint
Okay.
anyone you want.
That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions?
For Doug?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea to postpone it until after that happens, and then if everyone's in agreement, we can just re-ask for volunteers again at that point and just impanel a whole new one based off the new boundary lines.
Well, depending on the court's stuff, there's gonna be more stuff that has to be reviewed on the charter
for the-
anyway.
right.
So I think the timing on this isn't right anyway.
Yeah.
We should wait, and then Drew can put it out there on Facebook to have people who want to be involved. That's kind of been the problem in the past, is finding people who want to be involved. So typically, that's why I always got nominated for everything, because they knew I'd be involved, and so it's like, hey, Jared, you want to do this? So yeah, that would probably, I think it'd be good.
That sounds good. So we'll go ahead and do the public hearing if anybody wants to speak to it tonight, just since we advertised it before. And then after that, we can make a motion to postpone it until what'd you say, November 22nd? Is that what you said? Garrett? when we'd be done with the,
Yeah, that
With the
November
redistricting.
22nd would be the last possible council meeting, but the November 8th would be ideal.
okay, we can postpone it till November 8th then. Okay, so we'll open up the public hearing. I know some people came specifically to speak to this, so we'll let them do that at this time.
My name is Kent Ward, 201 West State Street, Nixa. I've been asked to be on that commission, and I want to say I fully support putting it off because there's no need to add any more troubles to what y'all are already dealing with in life. So as one of the people that's on the commission who may get bumped because of the redistricting, I still think y'all should just postpone it until we get that taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll leave the public hearing open.
Thank you. Ron Sanders, 976 Glen Oaks Drive. I understand that there will need to be some review with the court situation coming up and everything. I strongly object to looking at the recall measures, and my previous statements stand. We cannot have elected officials get into office with 134 votes or 670 votes and then require 1,600 signatures, to form a recall. That just would not be fair. That would not be just in any way, shape, or form. I've read over this ordinance several times, and the one thing that bothers me is that there are no requirements for public meetings. And I think that if you all bring it back, I think that there should be milestones. There should be at least a quarterly public hearing where the people who are on the commission or on the committee would have to hold a hearing and discuss everything that they've looked at so far. I've read the home charter several times. I understand that, periodically we do have to review stuff. I also think that fresh eyes would probably be wise to have, and maybe have an open and public, volunteer session or volunteer message put out so that everybody has a chance to actually say they'll volunteer. Give time to collect some names and give some people who have different views, different objective views of the whole home charter, and then bring them all together so that there's good, robust debate about everything that's in it. I don't want it to be an echo chamber. I don't want it to be a one-sided situation. So those are all the things that I would like to see in the ordinance whenever it comes time to look at it, if that's what you guys choose to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I agree. We should probably there should be some sort of public hearing. I know it's not required, but I think that's a good idea. I think we did that the last time. We didn't put it in the ordinance, so we can definitely do that.
Wasn't every
meeting was public, yeah.
posted? Yeah, so every meeting that's posted on the city's calendar, which every one of those is open to the public. So if you see a meeting on here and you're not sure what it's about, one, you can shoot one of us a message and ask what it is, and we'll let you know, but you can attend it. If it's in here and it involves...
But we can specify
Yeah.
too that they'll all be open meetings.
Yeah.
I think that's fine. All right, we leave the public hearing open. If anyone else would like to speak?
Hi, I'm Julie Hiltbrand. I live at 712 East Merrimack Lane. And I totally understand needing to put off the vote for this, needing to put off forming the commission and everything. Definitely better to just have everybody hit the ground running on all things at once instead of, start this now and then in a week or two or whatever, oh, hey, you have to figure out this too. And oh, hey, you have to figure out that too. That being said, I fully, wholeheartedly support changing the recall threshold. I don't think 10% of the registered voters of the affected district is in any way unreasonable. I don't think you can have 90% of the people of the affected district, whether that's one district or whether that's the whole city in the case of a mayor recall, 90% of the people can oppose it and it can still happen. I don't at all think that that is unreasonable to say that this 10% can still have their recall if they want it. You just have to convince 10% of the voters. I don't think that's unreasonable. And I don't think it should be 10% of the number of people who previously voted. Just because, as has been said, you guys don't represent only the people who voted for you. You don't represent only the people who voted in the last election. You represent everyone in your district, and Mayor, of course, you preside over the entire city. And it's only fair for all of the registered voters to be given the opportunity to either approve or disapprove a recall. And so that's the only thing I had to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sure, go ahead, Amy.
I just want to say, because I have floated the idea of 10% of registered voters, and Justin Orff echoed that as well. That's just a number that we have thought of. That doesn't mean anything. Everyone's kind of fixated on that number, like that's what it would be if the committee wanted to change it. Nobody knows what the committee will do. The committee might, if they do want to raise it, they might choose a different percentage. They might choose 3% or 5% or 7%. Nobody knows. So I just want to, make that clear that it's not like it's been somehow predetermined that the idea, that it's either going to stay the same or it's going to go to 10% of registered voters. We have no idea what may or may not happen with that. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. All right, we'll leave the public hearing open. If anybody, yep. Oh. Let her go first, Mr. Belcher. She's been waiting, I think.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bethany Morgan. Address is 660 North Rockingham Avenue in Nixa. And this is my first council meeting that I've come to and spoke at. And I decided to come in because I've been seeing things about the charter going around on social media, and I thought some of it was a little bit misleading or just not the full picture, and so I wanted to come in and share my opinion. I think a lot of the numbers were weren't incorrect per se, but were clearly pointing in one direction, and looking at the numbers in a different way, still just as valid, can maybe change how some people are looking at this. Again, this is just a form of committee, and I think everyone agrees that that makes good sense. Things change over time. This is a home charter, and it needs to be updated. This is also, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, the first time we've ever had a recall. And so because of that, this is going to be kind of trial and error. So if we've realized that something maybe needs to be updated because this is the first time it happens, it makes sense that we look at it again, even if the numbers aren't set in stone yet. So what I've found with the numbers is that around 70% of the votes, or not votes, people signed a petition to recall the mayor in a city of, I think, over 20,000, with registered voters of about 16,000. And either way you look at that, with registered voters or with total population, it's less than 0.5% of the population that has come forward and signed these petitions to cost a lot of money for the taxpayers, and I think that's the biggest issue with this. I think 10% or whatever the percentage is of registered voters makes a lot more sense because, as it's been stated before, it's the current population, and it's everyone being represented, not just people who voted in the past. And Nixa and Christian County in general is a fast-growing city and county, and so if we're looking at numbers from 1, 2, even 3 years ago, I don't think that's an accurate representation of the voters in the county now. I also looked into Ozark, just as kind of like a bouncing off point, because we're both, Nixa and Ozark are in the same class of cities. We chose to be home charter. They did not, and with that city class, currently, I believe it's 25% of registered voters are needed for a recall. So right now, with 10% of registered voters, that would still be very lenient. Right now, it seems we're extremely lenient, and because of that, wasting some money. Yeah, I also mentioned the population and representing everyone in your district or city. Again, people may not have been old enough to vote at the time of the election, but they still have a perfectly valid voice in the time of recall. And I think it's fine that we're putting this off, though. I think it makes a lot of sense to wait till the districts are redone. And also, I guess since I have a couple minutes left, I just wanted to offer a general support, encouragement. I feel like a lot of people coming to council meetings, the reason you do it is to air grievances. You don't come if you are content, whichever side you're on. So you guys don't get to hear a lot of things are going great. But I do feel like that is a majority of Nixa. Thank you for listening to all of us. That is
Thank
all.
you very much. I believe it's the first recall of a mayor in 125 years, but I could be off a year or two. Hey, I like to be in first at stuff. We'll leave the public hearing open if anyone else would like to speak to this item.
I'm Jeff Belcher. I live in Nixa. This isn't my first meeting. You're correct. It is the first in Christian County.
Yes.
In history.
I believe you're correct.
In history. And yet we've got claims it's being abused from one of our council members on Facebook. We're abusing the system. The system was spelled out, I don't know how many years ago. I think it's preposterous to think that 760 votes got the man elected, yet you want 2,100? That would be 10% to get him recalled. I hear mentions of 25% because that's what Ozark does. It's a completely different environment, completely different organization. So I would like someone to explain to me how you can win office with 3% of the vote, yet you need 10% to get a person removed. Because it's pretty simple to me. If you're only getting 3% to vote, that's 97% of people that don't give a damn. So now, when something does come up and a recall needs to be initiated, you've not only got to exceed the amount of people that voted, you've got to go above and beyond that for people that don't care. You've got to look for support from people that don't care. They're not active, they're not in meetings, they don't vote, they don't care. So why would you want to put that burden on the citizens if there's a grievance? I would say if you're going to do something, initiate at 10% minimum, then I believe the council should probably instigate, we need 100% voter turnout. We need an emergency order to mandate every citizen votes. And then 10% would be reasonable. But when you're going to demand 10%, when you're only getting 3% at the polls, what kind of math is that? Where does that logic come from? You got 97% of the people that don't care. And yet it's going to become our job to recruit, what, 6% more of them when they already don't care? That's ludicrous. I think if anybody with half a gray matter between their ears could sit and look at the logic of that, it makes no sense. It's not our job to campaign for you guys, for or against. So if you're only going to get 3% to show up to vote in a mayoral election, demanding 10% take action to remove him, it's ridiculous. It makes no sense.
We'll leave the public hearing open. If anyone else would like to speak, they can do so at this time.
My name is Sandy Carnes. I live in Nixa. The recall and making it changes, as always, is wrong. If 3% show up to vote, 3% can show up to recall. If 10% shows up to vote, 10% can show up for recall. Keep the power to the people, not the government.
Thank you very much. We'll leave the public hearing open. Oh, Mr. Davis. That's okay.
Did we follow the, sorry.
Make sure you say your name.
Sorry,
so she can
Andy
track it.
Davis, 881 West Pembroke. Did we
Thank you,
follow
Andy.
the recall rules? By the statute, by the home charter, did we follow every recall? Or did we follow like the procedure to recall you, yes or no?
Did the committee?
Yes.
Is that what you're asking? Okay, yes. I
So we
didn't know if you were
did-
asking if the
okay,
city,
yeah. I just
city
wanna get
followed
this
the
on
rules
record.
or if, yeah.
So we
I don't know
did
who's on the
follow
committee,
all the
so.
procedures in the charter to recall you, correct?
The committee to recall did follow all the correct procedures, yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. How long has this 10% registered voter to initiate the recall been in the home rule charter? Has this been in there like 100 years, 10 years, or is this like
10 or 11, so we had the home rule charter in 2010, and so it would have been in that initial ordinance in 2010.
Okay. So basically, to put this out there, you got about 600 and so votes last election, which is good, you won, you know. So 10% of that was about 67. So I'm just kind of just putting devil's advocate here. It's not our fault as the recall committee that other folks didn't vote. That's not our, you know, right? We did nothing wrong here. We went by the home rule charter. If folks don't like it, that's so be it. Like Nixa business owners who have attacked me, people who work with Jason Massengale have attacked me online and stuff. They don't know what the heck they're talking about. We followed this procedure to the rule, correct? And Kay Brown certified this, correct?
Yeah, that's very correct, Steve.
So folks saying I think Amy said, quote, our recall is a farce and illegitimate. Is that correct?
I remember the dog and pony show. I don't remember if I specifically
Well, we
said
got that on record.
I never indicated that you didn't follow procedures. I'm talking about the reasoning behind it.
That's fair. We can have disagreements on what happened, but yeah, like I said, it's not our fault that 600 some voters came out. If there would have been 1,500, we wouldn't be here. So, you know, I would also like to say I'm getting a little tired of like the folks bashing our committee. That's fine. You cannot agree with the recall, and we're putting a negative light, so be it. But these 73 people who signed are veterans like Ron Sanders. They're Nixa graduates. You know, I'm just getting tired of this, you know, of being bashed in the city. They're small business owners, you know, folks who bought, you know, stuff from people in this city and stuff like that. They've come out and say, what is going on in this city? You know, I'm just frustrated. You know, I understand you probably will, you know, win this or break this recall, you know, win it probably. But we did everything legally right. And it's just, I get tired of this crap. You know, like, oh, the 73 people, the small minority, you know, crap like that. It's just, it irritates me very much. You know, I'm sorry. I'm just tired of our group being put down. You know, if you don't like it, go vote for him again. I hear you're running for the 139 House seat in Missouri. Is that correct?
I don't know one way or the other as of yet.
I think you're running.
You never know, huh? There's been no such announcement made. But yes, if anyone is attacking you, it is definitely not on my behest. You did follow all the rules correctly in the home rule charter. Of course, some citizens, as some have here tonight, have voiced
I respect
concerns about that, and that is their right as well. And any changes to the home rule charter would go through an election as well. So you would have the opportunity to
people don't like what we
campaign
did,
against
they're
it.
wanting to change like the goalposts.
Sure.
Bottom line, right? They don't like it, that's fine, have a difference of opinion, but now you're just changing, oh, we don't like what you did because this group of people followed what they were supposed to do, then, oh, we're gonna change all the rules on you guys and have another division in Nixa. We just all need to calm down and just relax, go to football games, and me and Jared can high-five each other, and I'll even have Amy sitting next to me, how about that? You know, something like, you know, holy cow, I mean, we can work on other issues.
Message me your ticket, and then I'll try to get Chris to call it up in the booth for you.
But, you know, I'm sorry, you know, I just think bottom line, what you did was wrong. Like I said, I respect you, I voted for you twice. But in my opinion, what you did with the masking was a wrong deal. You know, the whole everybody knows me saying it, I've said it a million times everywhere. The whole city council voted, and then like 3 months later, you overruled the whole city council. Chris Russell came up here and said that the majority of Nixa businesses were against a mask mandate. Is that correct? There was a business.
He did have a survey, yeah.
Yes, so that is true, right? That the majority of Nixa businesses polled last summer were against the mask mandate. Is that true?
In July, yes.
Thank you. I'm done talking. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. And we will leave again, yes, if I fully support your right to have the recall, and you followed all the procedures correctly, and I appreciate that. We'll leave the home rule charter, or the home rule charter. We'll leave the public hearing open. And anyone else like to speak to this item? All right, we'll close the public hearing. And so would someone like to make a motion to postpone this?
I will make a motion to postpone this until a later date.
I think you have to specify a date. So you just have to say November 8th, which is the first meeting in November is what.
I can't pick something really fun, or?
You can do whatever you want, I guess.
Okay.
You just have to have a meeting that day.
Okay. I make a motion to postpone this to November 8th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to our next second reading, Bill 2021-088.
Second reading, Council Bill Number 2021-088, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa transferring the Nixa Municipal Court to the Associate Division of the Christian County Court. Mayor and Council, back in April, the Office of the State Courts Administrator, or OSCA as we refer to it, conducted a municipal court review to determine Nixa's compliance with state statutes, Supreme Court rules, and court operating rules. During this review, our court received a good report with only a few minor adjustments needed, mainly recommendations for business practices and some updated signage or changes to our website. However, there were two main areas of concerns identified. The first major area of concern included financial changes. OSCA is requiring that only court staff and judge have access to our court bank account. Since the judge has stated that he does not want to be on the account, this would mean that court staff would be solely responsible for all accounting and financial matters. What this means is a court clerk would be able to enter the tickets, accept the payments, update the court documents and records, generate checks, reconcile the end-of-month statements, and the bank statement itself. This practice would not provide any checks and balances that are currently in place and would not comply with the City of Nixa's internal control policy, which is a major concern not only for myself, but I think our finance director as well. The second area of concern that was brought up was the supervision of court staff. Currently, I oversee the day-to-day operations of the department, and then the judge handles the judicial part. Even though it wasn't mentioned in the official review, the initial report said that the judge had to be the sole supervisor of the department. This would mean that we had 2 full-time court clerks, 40 hours a week. They would be overseen by a judge that works approximately 4 to 6 hours per month. To me, this is a huge liability for the city. We would basically have 2 full-time persons working within the building with no authority to ensure that they follow the city's policies and procedures, and it could cause issues with accountability and possible legal liabilities as well. I do think that our court does a great job, but with these 2 major concerns, I think there's an issue. But also last year, the municipal court had fines and court costs of over $91,000, but expenses of $131,000, which netted a loss of almost $40,000. If the council decides to move court to county, Nixa would continue to receive the fines themselves, but expenses would be drastically less, which would result in a substantial savings. The clerk fees themselves would raise from $12 to $15, with those fees being split between the state and the county, state getting 80% and the county getting 20%. There are 2 court positions that we are hoping, if council does vote to send this on to county, that we could absorb into our workforce with any upcoming openings, so if they choose to apply. Also, moving a municipal court to county would eliminate the need for the PD to supply bailiff for court or to transport prisoners, which sometimes takes an officer off the road. Currently, Billings, Sparta, Highlandville, they have already transferred their court. They transferred to county about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. Ozark voted last week to move their court to county as well. If council passes this ordinance this evening, we will begin the transfer process with a target date, moving court to January 1st, 2022. With the increased workload, Christian County Circuit Clerk Barb Stillings has asked Nixa to consider partnering with Ozark to help hire an additional clerk for them. If we decide to go that route, this agreement would have to be on a year-to-year basis, and we would have to be agreed upon by all parties. They are asking for approximately $24,000 from both Ozark and Nixa to hire that position. Any questions regarding the review or the ordinance itself?
Could we recommend that one of our clerks be hired for, over there?
We've actually already had one of our clerks contact the county.
Okay.
And it would be up to them. It would be up to them whether or not they went over there. There is currently openings in the county
I talked to
right
Ms.
now.
Stillings yesterday, that they already have 3 openings.
They
in their
already have
department,
openings
so
right now.
There's
There we go.
plenty of room if that's what they decided to do, right?
Yeah.
I talked to a friend of mine who works part-time over there doing some stuff and I just asked her, how is it going with these other cities? And she says, it's running very smoothly. She said, surprisingly, it's done very, very well. I said, well, we're considering this, and I just wanted to know your thoughts on it, you know, with what's happening. She said, just the additional clerk would be the big thing.
Yeah.
More than anything, so.
Any questions about the review itself or anything?
Are the results of the review public information, or are they closed? They're public? Nick says yes, so.
Yeah, I mean, I would think it. Anybody that wants to see it, you can see it if you want. Yes.
Yes.
Any other questions? And so not only would we save the 40,000 we're currently losing, we would also get to receive the fines that we're losing
Rough
now.
estimations were we would save over $100,000 a year with this move. Because the expenses that we included did not include insurance or facilities or utilities or anything like that. It was just wages and office supplies.
Well, my big concern on this whole thing is the fact that the switchover for all the checks and balances. Because there's such an opening there for embezzlement or misuse of funds and all sorts of things if it goes to this, whereas right now it's overseen very, very carefully by the financial department and everything. And that just is a real big concern of mine, if we have to do that.
Mr. Davis likes to call me out for having interest in perhaps running for state. I'm just joking with you, Andy. But this is one of the kind of things, we didn't get into really kind of the in-depth of, you know, why this happened, but this is one of those places where the General Assembly tries to press down requirements and unfunded mandates down onto local governments, school districts, counties, and tries to make these requirements without thinking about what's going to happen in the future. So, you know, this was a result of Senate Bill 5 from several years ago, which crippled our law enforcement and their ability to handle crimes. It
Local level.
was specifically designed to make it so that all municipal courts would have to go away just because they wanted to get rid of municipal courts in St. Louis. So they didn't realize how that would affect citizens here in Nixa or in Ozark or in Highlandville. But they've put the rules in place that require, or force you at some point along the way. We end up with 5 or 6 employees just to have all the checks and balances in place that we need that just sit there in the courts department because we don't have enough cases. So that's kind of why we have to transfer to these things. Any other?
I will add that about 3 or 4 years ago, we actually had the Supreme Court monitor come down to our court, and we walked them through our processes and procedures. And the court monitor at the time said we were doing everything correctly and gave us, you know, a thumbs up.
They moved the goalposts from then till now.
And since that date, we had the review, and now they're saying the things that we had in place are not correct.
Right.
Because we strive really hard to have that checks and balances in place so that all our internal control policies are followed.
All right, any other questions? We'll open up a public hearing if anyone would like to speak to this item. Yes, sir.
It's not gonna like it.
Good evening. My name is Alan Hines. I live here in Nixa. Two main topics I want to talk about. First one, I urge you to keep the judge local. That way he's accountable to the citizens here in the city of Nixa. If the judge is over there, there's no way that we can keep him accountable to us, the people of our lovely town. Second of all, if you don't mind, go back to the first page there, please, or the previous page. Down a little bit. Some areas of concern. That first one with the checks and balances that were still unresolved. Why in the world, if there's not a way to have that resolved, is this even before the city council to be voted on? Why didn't you guys do your homework to fix that concern? And then the part-time judge being the sole supervisor of the full-time employees, that is patently farcical. There is no possible way that a guy who's here 6 hours a week, as qualified and as talented and as wonderful as he is, can possibly supervise two people that work 160 hours a month roughly. That is nonsensical. I think that this whole thing needs to be tossed on its head and reworked until there's a fix to that, and then bring it up before us. Unless these areas of concern have been fixed, and if they have been fixed, then why hasn't that been presented? This is just not ready for prime time, in my opinion. Thank you for your time.
But sir, I think that's what they're saying. We have everything in place, but now they've changed what we need to do. We haven't made the changes. They said, you have to change this.
Yeah, we allowed Cindy to, as our
Clerk.
city clerk, to manage those employees on a day-to-day basis because she's a full-time employee and they're full-time employees.
Right.
The state came in and told us that we could no longer do that, that was against the law. So we have tried for several years now to meet their requirements, and we meet the requirements, they then change the requirements. And that's why this is kind of, I mean, we've talked about this for a couple of years now, and this is kind of, the state has pushed us to this, that there's almost nothing else we can do. We would have to hire another employee to manage those two employees, another full-time employee, and then that employee would then again not be accountable to us or to our city administration. So the state just won't allow that. And so that's kind of why, that's why we got to this point, is because we can't fix the things they're asking. It's impossible. It's not a question of money or will or anything else. It's just that they've made it so difficult based off their desire to get rid of city courts in St. Louis County that they have made it almost impossible for us to be able to have city courts here.
That doesn't seem to be what that states, though. Maybe I misread it.
Yeah. No,
Mr. Mayor.
what this is saying is that if we keep the municipal court here, this is what the situation would be.
Yeah, that we would not
And
be
we
able
would
to
have no
monitor them. We
choice.
would not be able to supervise them. The judge would have to supervise them.
Oh,
And the judge says he doesn't want to
Just
do
like
it.
you were saying, yeah, the judge doesn't want to do that either. We don't want the judge to do that. The judge doesn't
Right.
want to. He couldn't do a good job, just as you said.
yeah.
And so that's why we're having to do this, because we move it over there, and then they have a system of administration with the judges that are Christian County judges. I mean, they're elected by the people of Christian County, not just the people of Nixa, but those elected judges there would then be the administrators of the staff. So exactly what you said is exactly the reason that we came to this decision that we kind of had to do this.
I apologize for misreading.
No,
That's okay.
no problem.
That's all right.
Yes, it's-
That is not
it's
at
very
all
it's
what
very
I-
complex
what I
issue.
read
Yeah.
there.
It is definitely a very complex issue.
Okay,
We definitely understand that's the reason we've kept it here for so long, when we've discussed this over the past years, is that we wanted to be able to have our judge here. We wanted to be able to have people be able to go to court here, but it's just becomes more and more cost prohibitive and more where we, like Ms. Graham was saying, that we can't monitor what they're doing. We have no way to know if they're embezzling funds or what. Of course, we don't think that they would do that. They've been good employees to the city for years, but we just, that's,
but
you get stuck in a rock and a hard place, right?
but they're good employees because they're held accountable and they are supervised.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Correct. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, if I could,
Yes.
just to correct the record a little bit on that, the supervision element was something that was presented, so I'm talking about the judge being the sole supervisor. That was something that was brought up during OSCA's initial review of our court system. After our first meeting and some argument back against them on that, that didn't end up in the final report. So that's not something that they are saying is something we need to correct. The concern with that is that that could come, just like it did, I don't know how long ago that was, but when the court monitor came down before and said everything's great, and now the goalposts have shifted. That's a goalpost that could shift and is probably going to shift based off of some of the direction that's coming down from the court monitor. I just wanted to clarify that's not a requirement right now. The concern there is that that could change in the future, and then that rule could be clarified. Right now, the rule on that is uncertain, which is why I think it didn't show up in our report after that was brought to their attention.
Okay, so it's something that was brought up by the monitor, but just not,
Yes,
but
they
we were able
claimed
to
it was
argue
a-
out of it in the final
They
report.
claimed it was a conflict of interest and then couldn't provide any analysis on why that was a conflict of interest. Also, the minimum operating standards, what governs how the court operates, it does allow for, it appears to allow for a division between judicial and non-judicial functions. So Cindy, as city clerk, supervises the court personnel in their non-judicial functions. The judge supervises in their judicial functions. After that was brought up to them, this didn't appear in our final report. The concern with that element is that that could change because those rules are promulgated by the Supreme Court. So there wouldn't be a vote of the General Assembly. It would just be the Supreme Court coming down and saying, we're gonna move this back, which is what has happened. That's those goalposts being moved.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. So we'll leave the public hearing open. Would you like to speak?
Jeff Belcher, Nixa, Missouri. I heard you say something I didn't believe I'd ever hear you say. The goalposts keep moving. You don't like being forced into doing something because of what they're doing in St. Louis. Sound familiar? Sounds familiar to me. I hear echoes back there. It's the exact same thing. The only difference is these are what? Administrative positions, a job, things that are easily replaceable. We're talking about choices, field posts moving. These are jobs. We're talking about health, personal health, a personal decision. You seem a little miffed that you can't make a decision about your city because somebody bigger and higher and more powerful than you is saying, no, you can't do that. We're going to decide what's right for you. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. It's the same thing. Put the shoe on the other foot for a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Belcher. We'll leave the public hearing open.
I had some strong thoughts about this. My name's Ron Sanders, by the way, if any, but probably
Did you
need
speak
to.
on this already, Ron?
No, not this
Okay,
one.
okay.
Last meeting. Last meeting.
No, go ahead. Okay.
I've been up here a lot, though.
I'll try to.
I understand the rock and the hard place situation. I really do. The concern is that there's several that come to mind. The police carrying the function of, moving people to the court from jail and everything is very important because they need to have continuity of exactly how they're affecting people's lives. And every single police officer should, have the opportunity or the responsibility to go and take someone who's in jail and take them to the court. You know, it has a profound impact on what they think their job is and what they see their job as being. That's one thing that I would say is going to greatly change whenever this happens. The second thing is you're going to lose a huge portion of your power by moving everything over to the county. The county is going to assume a lot more control over how things are operated with the judicial process of our judge and of the people that are going to be working in the court. And they're going to look a little bit more foreign to us because they're going to become a part of the county, and they're not going to be seen as, you know, our peers anymore. That really bothers me as well. And that I'm pretty sure that's a great concern on everybody's mind. It's kind of what Cindy alluded to, you know, losing the court out, you know, because of these situations. So my question to y'all would be, in the future, you know, what we should look at if we have to do this now is how do we bring the court back, and when do we bring the court back? How big does the city have to be in order to bring the court back and to be able to afford that specific structure? And maybe the judge's responsibilities have to be adjusted, you know, during the next election to say, hey, you want to be the judge, there are responsibilities that come with being the judge, including being financially responsible for, you know, at least the oversight of the financial portion. Yeah, and we need to determine now, how big do we have to be? How much money can we afford? Because I still stand by my original statement that if we're going to make laws, we need to be prepared to pay the financial cost of enforcing those laws. Even if there were no revenues collected from penalties and everything, we want those laws to be enforced. We want people to be held accountable. And that is the ultimate goal. That should always be the ultimate goal of us passing laws and enforcing laws and having laws to structure our community. It should always be a responsibility that we take seriously. So I guess it would be like the next 5-year plan as far as judicial, you know, responsibilities go, to bring this back as soon as possible, figure out how much it's going to cost to make it happen, and dedicate, you know, a portion of our budget to do that. Because if we're going to hold our citizens accountable, they need to come to our court. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. And we'll leave open the public hearing. Ms. Fairchild.
I'm Christy Fairchild, Nixa. I didn't plan to speak, but since we're on the topic of Nixa Court, I think that the only cases that they really hear are like speeding tickets and brake lights out. So I understand that everybody here wants to have a safe town, and we want to hold people accountable, and we want to uphold our laws, but those criminals are really already handled by county. Like, we're doing speeding tickets, so I don't think we're losing any accountability. You say this is our court, well, Christian County is our court too. Christian County is our county. So really the criminals are already just being tried at county, so.
Thank you, Mrs. Fairchild. And we will leave open the public hearing. And we will close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Jared Giddens.
Yes.
Aaron Peterson.
Yes.
Darlene Graham.
Yes.
Amy Hookstrat.
Yes.
Sean Lucas.
Yes.
Justin Orff.
Yes.
Oh, I had put down, Mr. Sanders, I was going to say, we don't have control over the court now. The county judge has control is the supervisor of our judge. So we don't have any control over as a body, we don't have any control over what the court does, or, you know, how they act or behave. And the problem we had is that they were taking away whatever controls we had, like fiscal checks and those types of things. So, just move on to our resolution section, Resolution 2021-091.
Resolution number 2021-091, a resolution of the Council of the City of Nixa authorizing the city administrator to apply for and accept an officer safety equipment and technology grant provided by the Missouri Department of Public Safety.
Mayor, Council, what we have before you tonight is a resolution that would allow the city administrator to apply for and accept a grant from the DPS for public safety equipment and/or technology. And in this case, we're seeking public safety equipment. The grant is a non-matching grant and is the total amount that you can ask for, or the maximum, is $7,500. When you look at the perspective of what technology can you get for that, you really can't get a lot of technology for $7,500. We have things that we'd like to buy that would certainly increase our technology. However, in this instance, officer safety equipment would seem more appropriate for this amount of money. And so what we're going to ask for is officer safety equipment, specifically helmets and clear ballistic shields. Those are, I said ballistic, I meant non-ballistic shields. Those would be utilized in any situations where we would have demonstrations or protests or riots, God forbid. We would have the equipment to protect the officers. We've never had to use that, and it's always one of those things where you want the equipment if you need it. But if I had my choice, we would never get it off the shelf. However, you do have to provide it, and it's important for the officers, if they find themselves in those situations, to be protected. So we are seeking this grant to start equipping those officers with that equipment, and certainly we have tried on other grants, we just didn't get prioritized in the past. So hopefully we will get prioritized on this grant, and we can move forward with some of that equipment. Any questions?
Is this also equipment you can use, like, if you're breaching a house or serving a warrant, or?
Well, so the helmets could be used in a variety of different ways. You know, it is simply as head protection and face protection, so it could be used in a variety of different ways. The clear non-ballistic shields are really designed just to keep people from throwing projectiles or striking an officer. I know that laser pointers and things of that nature have become an issue in some other places, and so the clear shields will have some eye protection that's integrated into that as well. And so that's mainly how we would use it.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief. And we'll open up the public hearing if anyone would like to speak to this item. And we'll close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Motion to approve?
I'll
So
make the
made.
motion. Aha.
Or second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. And Resolution 2021-092.
Resolution number 2021-092, a resolution of the Council of the City of Nixa designating Linville Construction LLC as the successor developer pursuant to Section 115-80 of the Nixa Code for certain improvements related to the Auburn Heights subdivision.
Thank you. So it is true that in bureaucracies and in public bureaucracies especially, there can be a tendency toward waste. I know that sometimes becomes a caricature, but it's also a little bit of nugget of truth in there. This situation is an example of that tendency, and I also hope an example of how we are going to head that off here in Nixa and not go with that flow. So in this particular case, what the code or the city's policy would require is for this developer to install the sidewalk that you see there in blue in this development. But in this case, we have every reason to believe that that sidewalk will then subsequently, within weeks, be destroyed and then have to be replaced. literally within weeks of it being constructed. That would waste thousands of somebody else's dollars, obviously needlessly. So as soon as we became aware of this situation, staff consulted with the city attorney, as is my custom. He knows how the law works better than I. Said we need a legal, legitimate pathway here to help save, not waste this person's money. And that's exactly what this resolution does, is it provides a pathway for the council to authorize staff to accept an escrow for the value of these sidewalks, and gives this particular home builder a year to go ahead and get these homes constructed, build the sidewalk as they're going, and then there is no $10,000 worth of concrete wasted. So I think that's a good outcome. Staff is obviously recommending the approval of this particular resolution. I will say this works in this particular case. It's a relatively small subdivision, a relatively small amount of sidewalk. I think the city's policy is something we could certainly look at overall, but it just, for the sake of clarity, the reason the city's policy is what it is because usually subdivisions are much bigger and the homes are built over a much longer period of time. And what we don't want are gaps in sidewalks in neighborhoods that stay there for years. And so that's why the policy is what it is. In this case, that's obviously no risk. So in this case, we are recommending to do something slightly different.
Again, the law of unintended consequences. That was the prior thing, is that you only had to build the sidewalk when you built the house. We changed that because we had stretches of houses or lots that sat for years and years with an open gap of sidewalk in between, and so it wasn't any good to have sidewalks if they were never completed. But this sounds like a great solution. Any other questions? Nope. Thank you, Garrett. We'll open up the public hearing. If anyone would like to speak to this, they can do so at this time. And we will close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Motion to approve?
So made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Move on to 2021-093.
Resolution number 2021-093, a resolution of the Council of the City of Nixa accepting the proposal of Commerce Bank for purchasing card services and authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract for same.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you, you have a resolution to allow the city administrator to enter into a contract with the Commerce Bank for purchasing card services. If I may, I'll also speak to the next resolution, which is similar, same, but different. We submitted a request for proposals in July for banking services, and we structured it so that if a bank had banking services and or purchasing card services, we could choose two different banks if it was most advantageous to the city. And in this case, Commerce Bank had the best purchasing card services program, and another bank had better banking services. So the next resolution is for the banking services portion of that RFP. And so what you have before you, we would enter into this contract October 1st, and it would serve as our city's purchasing card program, which is much more robust and has a little more fraud prevention than the current system that we have. So I'll entertain any questions if you have them.
Any questions? Thank you, Jennifer. We'll open up the public hearing and close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Motion to approve?
So made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And 2021-094.
Resolution number 2021-094, a resolution of the Council of the City of Nixa accepting the proposal of Southern Bank for banking services and authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract for same.
Again, same thing, but for banking services, this would be with Southern Bank, and the contract would start October 1st.
Do you know I assume the biggest thing here was rates on our money?
We're paying the highest interest rate, which is still not high, 0.2%, but we were offered 0.1%, so every little bit helps. But also with that, all of their banking services were free. They don't charge any fees, whereas some of the other banks charged fees. So that was the determining factor. And they offer a full range of services, everything that we have now, so.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jennifer. We will open the public hearing on this resolution. And close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Motion to approve.
So made. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And last but not least, 2021-095. Nope, back again.
Resolution number 2021-095, a resolution of the Council of the City of Nixa authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract amendment with Ion Wave Technologies for contract management services.
This is a contract amendment. We already have a contract with Ion Wave Services. They are contracts management software. And this would add a module to that to provide for electronic bidding and vendor registration, which would help in the bidding process. Currently, our contractors can sign up and say, I want a notification every time the city lets a bid. But the problem is they will get every bid that we let. So you can have a concrete contractor that's getting the banking services bid. So this way, a vendor can register and put all their information in, and they can sign up for which bids they want to receive notice of. It also tracks the bids. It allows for electronic opening of those bids instead of like a paper opening with a time and date stamp on it. And so it's just a more robust offering of services in addition to what we already have with Ion Wave. So this is an additional module. We had budgeted for it this year, and it also will bundle that all together with our current contract and make it for 5 years from now. So.
This is something that would also be covered in the previous review that we were going to have done for a new ERP system. Is it ERP? Is that the right acronym?
That's the right acronym.
Okay. Thought so.
But what was your question about?
Would this type of software be included in that? Should we sign a 5-year contract with
no,
these guys for that? Or is that something that we would have under that review?
No, that would not. It's probably in there, but I've never seen. This one ties into our current contract management system so that then when the bids are accepted and then that registered vendor's bid can then tie into their contract and all be one piece of the database. That's our contract database system. So it talks to the software we already have.
Okay. That's probably something we would want to try to get integrated in with your financials.
Right,
services system
I
when we
understand what
have-
you're saying
when we
now,
go to
yeah.
that. Yeah. Okay. Was there a cost for this included in here?
What was the cost, the total cost?
Yeah.
Let's see, I think we have been paying, I think it was $4,800 a year, and it about doubled that. So it's
Okay.
$10,000 a year.
About $5,000. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Jennifer. And we will open up the public hearing on this item. And we will close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Motion to approve?
So made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Page 5. Yeah. Usually it's in the top part when you're asking us to approve something. Okay, so anything else from staff? Sorry. You got anything else? Okay. Anything else from council? No? Amy is scheduled to do her liaison presentation next meeting, if that's still okay. We'll make sure that Cindy gets that.
Yeah, that'll be okay, yeah.
Sounds great. All right. So we will all look forward to that. If nothing else, I'll accept a motion for adjournment.
So made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. And thank you all.